All right, here we go. This is the start of a new series. This is called the Phi-Singularity Transmuter. And this is the genesis of the Phi-Singularity Transmuter. It started with a question. Not about outer space or warp drives, but about lava. I wanted to know, how could you stop a volcano from exploding? Not by plugging it, not by praying it away, but by understanding what it really is. Because I realized something most geology never admits. Lava isn't some molten rock bleeding out of mantle we've never seen. It's crystallized world tree sap. It's the blood of an ancient organism, bioplasma charged by the piezoelectric squeeze of quartz and silica inside the Earth's crust. When it's compressed, that charge builds, liquefies, and finally erupts to relieve the pressure. So the problem wasn't the heat, it was the tension. At first I thought in simple chemistry. How could I harden it? Maybe a sheath, some mineral blend that would cool it instantly like amber forming around a mosquito. I modeled different compounds, crystalline layers, metallic catalysts, but every solution had the same flaw. Even if you cooled the surface, the pressure would find another outlet. Energy doesn't disappear, it migrates. So then I thought, let's look at it through science fiction, through imagination. I remembered that scene in Star Trek, Into Darkness, when Spock drops a cold fusion charge into a volcano to freeze it solid. And yeah, in the movie it works perfectly. But that's not how cold fusion even works. Cold fusion doesn't pull heat, it releases more of it. They call it cold, but what they showed was something else entirely. Something that inverted energy instead of generating it. That's what stuck with me. What if you could actually do that? 2 days later, a friend sends me a clip from The Simpsons. Everyone's getting sucked into the black hole singularity, if you've ever seen that episode. It made me laugh, but then it hit me. Everyone always talks about the black hole side, the implosion, the sucking in. No one ever talks about the other side, the radiant outflow, the rebirth of that same energy in higher order. Every singularity is half implosion, half explosion, half inhale, half exhale. So I started to wonder, what if you could take the chaotic energy of a volcano, draw it inward like a black hole, and then re-express it as coherent light through the opposite pole. At first I pictured a transdimensional orb, a containment sphere that could hold the payload of all that heat and pressure. But there was a flaw again. If the orb ever lost its harmonic balance, if its golden ratio symmetry broke, that stored charge could rupture or misfire, releasing chaos somewhere else. Containment wasn't enough. It needed to breathe. That's when it clicked. The answer wasn't in stopping energy, it was in cycling it. If I could bring a toroidal field that constantly pulled in the heat, translated it through a phi balance coherence cavity, and then re-expressed it as harmonic radiation, the energy would never accumulate as pressure. It would constantly evolve. Chaos transmuted into higher order light. That was the birth of the idea. A device that doesn't resist nature but harmonizes with it. A singularity that remembers both halves of creation. The implosion and the explosion. The inhale and the exhale of the universe. And that's how the Phi-Singularity Transmuter was born. From a volcano that refused to be contained and a mind that refused to stop asking, what if? When I first started to understand what energy really is, not just as heat or electricity, but as living frequency, it changed everything. Every system on Earth, every eruption, every conflict, every flash of lightning, it's all the same story. Energy in disarray, looking for order. For generations, we've tried to block that energy, contain it, or fight it. But what if instead of resisting it, we welcomed it? That's where the implosive intake begins. It's not a weapon, it's not a pump. It's a negative pressured node, a point of invitation. Imagine a funnel that doesn't suck things in by force, but invites chaos to return home. Heat, kinetic shock, plasma, radiation, all of those wild frequencies come spiraling toward the intake like storm winds finding their eye. Inside that funnel, something beautiful happens. Crystals, quartz, silica, and any piezo-responsive lattice start to sing. Under compression, they create a charge, an electrical song that organizes the chaos around it. This is the piezoelectric coupling, the bridge between matter and frequency. The chaotic energy, which was once violent, begins to align itself with that rhythm of the toroidal sphere. Think of it like breath. When you inhale deeply, you don't destroy the air, you transform it into life. The implosive intake is Earth's inhale. It draws in disorder, pressure, and heat, not to explode them outward, but to translate them inward, to begin the process of transmutation. That's why we call it implosive, not explosive. Explosion is entropy, outward chaos. Implosion is return, energy seeking its source. From a volcano's roar to a lightning strike, every surge of a force on this planet is just energy begging for coherence. The intake gives it that chance. It says, come home. We will show you how to remember your harmony. At the surface, it may look like a funnel of golden light, but inside, it's a harmonic chamber of stillness. The deeper the energy goes, the slower it becomes, until the chaos collapses into geometry. This is the first breath of the transmuter, the moment when wild energy realizes it doesn't have to be destructive. And it compresses. You can feel that next stage forming, the phase translation, where heat becomes light and sound becomes structure. That's where we go next. This is the moment of translation, where chaos learns the language of order. Inside the funnel, the wild current we pulled in begins to spiral tighter and tighter. It's not being destroyed. It's being compressed into coherence. Every vibration, every particle, every frequency starts to realize it's part of a larger rhythm. This is the phase translation zone, the threshold where entropy turns into harmony. At first, the energy fights it, just like a human being when life squeezes them. It resists, trembles, and shakes. But the compression isn't punishment, it's alignment. It's the same way pressure forms a diamond, or how the Earth's core turns raw chaos into magnetic beauty. Here, the disordered waves begin to collapse into golden geometry. You could think of it like a tuning of an instrument that's been out of pitch for centuries. Each oscillation finds its rightful harmonic interval until the noise becomes a chord. That's harmonic compression, not crushing, but refining. The energy becomes denser, more refined, and more luminous. Heat turns to plasma. Plasma turns to light. Light turns to pattern. It's as if the energy remembers what it was before it forgot. Pure coherence. And that coherence forms structure. Golden spirals emerge. Standing waves appear. The entire field begins to breathe in phi ratios. That divine balance found in galaxy shells and the very code of life itself. It's the phi ratio alignment, the mathematical heartbeat of creation. People think of energy as violent or random, but the truth is energy wants to return to order. All you have to do is give it a pathway home. That's what the phase translation chamber is, a temple of return. It doesn't fight chaos, it reminds chaos what harmony feels like. As the energy spirals through the throat of the device, it's not just changing form, it's changing the state of consciousness. It's becoming aware of itself again. This is the point